Okay, good morning. How are you? We're going to change the world. And we're going to change the world because the future is female. Is that good or is that bad? Is that good? I thought so. So, I'm going to talk to you this morning about really what it takes to drive true innovation, more holistic, more sustainable, and more impactful innovation in the world today. But the biggest challenge of all is for you as a leader of your organization, as a leader of your country, as a leader of your own personal dreams. How can you make the future happen? So I want to start off with some ladies from around the world. And a fashion brand recently asked many different women, what does it take to be a leader today? Take a look at this.
That's a fun question.
Leading looks like...
I think it looks like your genuine self.
Having no boundaries.
It's being limitless.
Women need to be two things: fearless and shameless.
Honesty, truth.
A person who keeps it pushing.
True leaders are good listeners.
Put other people forward.
To be the best they can be in what they want to do with their lives.
Leading is fearless. Leading is dynamic. Leading is smart.
Leading looks like commitment. It looks like dedication. It's hard work.
There's no level that you're above or below.
I would say that every woman is a leader, whether she thinks she is or not.
You always trust your gut. If you think you're right, you probably are. And even if you think you're wrong, you're probably right.
You have to make sure that your voice is heard.
Even before you try something, you might think in your head that you can't do it.
And even when they tell you no, don't accept it. Find another way, find another path. But don't give up on it.
First of all, trust yourself.
Never give up. Know that you're good at what you do and that your opinion matters.
You have the power to accomplish anything.
Nothing's impossible.
I think you have to own your mistakes. Everyone's human. Everyone has good days and bad days.
Just keep trying. I know it sounds cliche.
Leading for me is inspiring people, maybe to help them see things that they might not see in themselves.
Leading looks like a strong, independent woman who's not afraid to say what she thinks.
So leading looks like me?
Leading looks like, it really does look like you. It looks like all of us.
Let's see. Leading looks like me. No, I'm kidding.
So, some great inspirations there, but it could be about inspiring other people. It could be about having the power to do things you never dreamed of. But actually, leadership is also about being yourself. Whoever you are, however unique and different you are, that is what is special about you. So be the most of yourself is the biggest advice I would give you, and have confidence in doing that. So I'm going to talk about three things over the next 30 minutes. Firstly, disrupting the old logic. We live in a world of incredible technology. Which is driving change in everything we do, from digital platforms which we're familiar with today, to the future of blockchains and artificial intelligence, which can transform everything we do. But what that means is that logic is increasingly redundant in this world. So the process-driven logic and linear thinking, which we associate with business in many senses, is increasingly not what moves you forward. So the second question is really, how do you innovate in the world today? How do you move forwards? How do you drive progress, both economically and beyond making money? And then thirdly, why is the future female? It's a nice thing to say, but what do we actually mean by that? And why is it so important both for men and for women today? But let me start off by saying we live in an incredible world. We're so lucky, we're so privileged to be in business at this time. And whether we work in a profit-making or a not-for-profit organization, the difference we can make both to individual lives locally, but also to the world today, is phenomenal. The tools which that technology gives us to amplify our impact are incredible. So the ability to reach out and to do new things, to work with partners in new ways. You can actually do almost anything. It's not how big you are. It's not how much money you have today. It's about the idea you have. So the ability to think in fundamentally different ways. We probably live in a world where there'll be more change in the next 10 years than the last 250 years. And I say that, and it sounds like a glib statement. But think about it. Think about what happened in the last 250 years. How did the steam engine transform the way in which we work and we live? The ability to mass produce in factories, to automate like never before, things which were handmade or agriculturally driven. The telegraph, the telephone, connecting us, and then the car and the aeroplane, connecting us globally across the world. Sharing culture, sharing ideas, opening up new opportunities like never before. The man on the moon, should be the woman, but the man on the moon, changing our expectations as to what is possible, therefore changing our dreams as to what we want to go for. And then this tsunami of digital stuff over the last 24 years, which means every one of us now has our mobile phone on our table and can't stop touching it in front of us. But then I'd say there'll be more change than all of that in the next 10 years. And we can see it right now. Just look in different industries. Look how healthcare or financial services or retail has changed, even in 12 months. The new innovations which keep evolving incredibly fast. And ideas emerge incredibly quickly. I do a lot of work in America. I was in Seattle last year. I came across this scooter, this e-scooter. It almost ran me down. I went to Madrid a few months later. Scooters were all over the pavements. It's not just about electric cars or electric bikes anymore. This is the kind of the contagious idea which spreads incredibly quickly. This was only launched as a brand 12 months ago. But then it spreads across the world at phenomenal speed, not because of the logic of what it works, but the emotional desire to have one and to do it and to connect, and the viral impact of people talking to people rather than any traditional advertising campaign. Or think about the power of digital to reach across the world. How many people saw Alibaba's Singles Day on Sunday? Yeah? So creating $30.8 billion in one day. That's phenomenal. Think how much shopping that is. But, if you think about Black Friday in America, that generates about $3.8 billion. So this is generating 8 times more than that, but spread across the world. 52% was not from China. So it is a truly global event today. It's all about having gamification whereby you can actually engage more, not just getting a discount, but actually playing a game and being able to find rewards which become discounts, therefore you want to spend more money. But being able to reach out starts to drive exponential growth in the way these new types of digital platforms and organizations think about what they do. So how could you apply the same ideas to your kind of organization, be it for making money or be it for doing good? But technology is not enough. Does anybody know this organization? This is esports. League of Legends. League of Legends is now the biggest mass participation sport or game in the world. And for many years, it was about computer games, playing against one person, invisibly against another, in the seclusion of your own home. But today, it's about people playing computer games against each other, but with 100,000 people watching them at the same time. How incredible is that? Which is actually crazy, but if you think about the music industry, for example, it's the same thing. We move to a world of digitalization, downloads on iTunes or Spotify. But actually, the money in music is not in those kind of companies. The money is in the rock concert. As the downloads increase, the actual price of the rock concert ticket goes up. Live Nation is the most profitable music company in the world. So physical events become more important in a digital world, and it's how digital and physical work together to make that happen. We see Nintendo launching the new generation of games. It's fantastic, it's the latest technology, but actually it's made out of cardboard as well. Because people want to play, people want to have fun, people want to engage with each other, people want to make things, to be individual and artisans, even in a technologically fueled world. So the experience gets better. And it's also about people with people. The fastest growing beauty brand in the world is Glossier. Glossier connecting people with a passion for the similar thing, co-creating their own products, and then creating a pop-up store like we saw in the Dubai Mall last week, where you can actually connect with the people who you've actually met online, and you can actually see the products which you've been part of creating. So technology enabling us to be more human in many different ways. But if you look at this world, it's changing faster and faster and faster. You know, look at the last 5 years. These were the top companies in the world 5 years ago by market capitalization. Apple and Exxon, the oil company, the financial services company, another oil company. And look at 5 years later. What's changed? They're all technology companies, so the power of technology becoming more and more important. They're actually a different mix of companies, so the dirty oil companies of before aren't generating the money in the same way. So commodities or product-based companies can't amplify their impact like technology can enable you to amplify your impact. And so thinking about the new generation of companies and what do they do differently. At the same time, we have the challenge, like somebody mentioned before. Who leads these organizations? If you actually look across the Fortune 500 companies, there's only 24 companies led by a woman, 5%. If you look at the top 1,000, it's actually less, it's 4%. But why is that? And what is the opportunity, not just the challenge, but the opportunity if it was to be different more later? Think about the changing world and where the growth is. Look at the growth of China, 35% growth over the 2 years we're currently in, twice as big as the American national GDP growth. But then you see other markets growing incredibly fast. Certainly when I was in Shanghai recently, a huge number of females driving new opportunities and growth. Look at the change in terms of society. You know, if you look back over 1,000 years, the global economy was actually driven by India, even more than China. And what's interesting to me is we kind of start to move back towards that world with China driving the headlines. It's India and other countries like Indonesia which drive really the opportunity. So how are you seizing the opportunities of that growth? Or look at where the emerging middle class, I don't like the word class, but the emerging people with ability to spend money, to make choices in terms of how they spend that money. Well, the huge growth is in Asia. And then we look at innovation and how fast innovation populates our world. The time to market from the telephone, landline telephone, which almost took 100 years to penetrate the market to its full extent, compared to more recent innovations which take 1 or 2 years or even 1 or 2 months. So thinking differently about the speed at which we can change, the speed at which we can have impact. Think about then how the cities of the world have changed. This is comparing the top 12 cities in China to nations in Europe. I mean, I've heard of all of these countries. You've heard of Switzerland and Sweden and Denmark and so on. But how many of these Chinese cities have you heard of? I've probably heard about 3 or 4 of them. But huge metropolises where there's new opportunities and things happening at great speed. And then we see a connected world like never before. So the Chinese government's investment in their Belt and Road strategy, connecting both by land and sea, not just China, but connecting us with the world in new ways as well. I went to Sri Lanka recently. The Colombo port, which has been developed by the Chinese government, is absolutely huge, bigger than the city, but a hub for the world's trade like never before. The same in Ethiopia and the same in other points across that map. So partly it's about connecting most of the world within 5 hours of Shanghai, but it's also connecting the world with these new markets as well. And then you see, going further forwards, how is the world changing in terms of the future cities? The biggest city in the world today is Tokyo, with 30 million people. By 2100, the 3 biggest cities in the world will not be in Asia, will not be in Europe or America. The 3 largest in the world will be Kinshasa, Dar es Salaam, and Lagos. All 3 of them over 100 million people in Africa. So thinking again differently, longer term, how can we actually connect the world and seize the opportunities of that changing world? It requires a new type of thinking. It requires a connected thinking to actually understand where is opportunities and how do we innovate in that changing fabric. And then we have huge challenges like Sophie talked about at the beginning, be it in terms of climate change and global warming, or be it in terms of a huge number of social issues. How do we address those? How do we use the new technologies to address them faster? And how do we use the power of business and brands and consumers to also motivate people to want to make positive choices in the world? And as a result of all of that, we see a world which changes in terms of its mindset. So power changes too. Power in the traditional sense of hierarchy, power in the traditional sense of logic starts to really change. This is where the female power starts to really come in. So you see networked, more intuitive power, more informal relational power becomes more important. We see influencers rather than advertising, for example, in the world of marketing. Instead of competition, we recognize that collaboration is more important. So empathy and the ability to connect with people becomes more important. Instead of confidentiality and keeping things to ourselves, we realize that openness becomes more important in this new world. And so the behaviors which go with that. Instead of being expert and perfect in what we do, we want to make things ourselves, the ability to be practical and do things and enable others to do things. And finally, the traditional forms of affiliation and loyalty are replaced by new forms, be they temporal or be they more personal in terms of who we trust and what we belong to. So those changes in the world drive huge opportunity, but they also drive the need for a different type of behavior, a different type of mindset, and a different type of capability. And that's really where I'm focused. That's why I'm heading towards the idea the future is female. So if you look at all these technologies which we now have, the real opportunity is to address the challenges of a changing world. So take things like 3D printing or cloud or nanotechnology or robotics or whatever it might be and think about, well, how can you solve some of those big challenges which we have? So with drone technologies, how can you get drugs to remote locations in Africa faster and save lives? How can you address the challenge of an aging population across the world, or whatever the challenge might be? How can you take the technology, how can you take the challenge of a changing world, both opportunity and the problem, and say, how can we make it better? And that's really where changing the game comes in. How can you create a better world? And particularly, how can you leap forwards? How can you accelerate the change through using some of these fantastic new tools which we have at our disposal? So the future certainly isn't like it used to be. We used to live in a world where we incrementally moved forward. We used to live in a world where we followed what the hierarchy said we should do, where we conformed to the stereotypes which the old culture gave us. We used to live in a world where we kept trying to stretch the old model of success. Companies keep trying to do more of the same thing because that's what made them successful in the past. They kept adding 10% to the old model. Or as individuals, we kept trying to lead in the same way is the way in which we got to our positions in our organizations. But what we actually really need to do is to realize that looking forwards, we need to do things in different ways. We need to unfold or refold our arms or our thumbs and think differently. So thinking about the future and thinking about how can we do that requires us all to be a game changer, to think about how can we move forwards and change the game of our industry, change the game of our nation, change the game of the policies and processes by which we use to do things in more effective ways. I wrote a book about a year ago called Game Changers, and it looked across the world at organizations, public and private and profit and non-profit, and how do they actually make bigger change happen? What do they do? So I just wanted to spend a little bit of time sharing those 100 companies with you. I'm going to tell you them in 5 minutes, okay? So I want you to make a note of the companies, and I will ask you which ones inspire you most. So take a paper and pen and write down the ones which inspire you most. Okay, here we go. So, in terms of looking at these companies, let's start with the world of retail. So, you can ask Alexa and within 2 hours deliver to your home in most cities across the world. In Australia, from the farm to your door, the leading supermarket. Italy brings the experience of food to life in every different way. And any artisan can jump across the world today using a platform, connecting people with people to do more of what they love. And Gojek being able to deliver anything to you in Indonesia. The biggest tourist attraction in New York City was the Museum of Ice Cream, and you click on it and you can buy anything you want to today, what you see. Connecting people with a passion together in cycling from Rafa, and Trader Joe's is just about having fun in your local community. In the world of products, then let's look at some of these companies. So iTunes and App Store has changed the world of Apple. Beauty and cosmetics, food, bringing it together in new different ways. Anybody can invest in anything with the help of blockchain, and GoPro transformed the world of photography. 65% of people join an online community with Lego, and Method is all about making your bathroom beautiful. Nature is all about jumping across markets from Brazil, and Nike is a sports company, not a sportswear company. Oculus Rift is all about education and travel, not just technology. And Renova, why is toilet paper white? It's a bad idea. In the world of banking, then BlackRock said, only invest in companies which do good. Commonwealth Bank says we help you invest to do more and help you do more. DBS helps people to be fitter in Singapore. And Fido, Facebook likes drive interest rates, connecting in new ways. First National sell more iPads than Apple, and M-Pesa from a telco to become the leading financial services company in Africa. Small companies can be big, and learning from other industries like Starbucks and Gap in Ushadi. So Didisha is a peer-to-peer, and ZhongAn is about insurance, the largest in the world. In the world of healthcare, $99, you can profile your DNA, which can change your life. Aravind Eye Care in Africa, so being able to Skype operations to do new healthcare, and turning from negative into positive with CVS Health. Gene editing is the future of healthcare, and Infofusion is about using AI to scan things to be better. 92% of heart surgery is done by a robot today, and health tourism funding free healthcare in India. Any part of your body can be 3D printed with Organova, and patients trust patients more than they trust any doctor. Second Sight is all about connecting a camera to your brain so people who are blind can see. In the world of technology, the school teacher from China became $470 billion billionaire, and SoftBank 3 times more successful than Intel. Darktrace is about the future of security online, and 10 times rather than 10% is the mantra of Google. Cardboard makes gaming better and transforming the world of virtual reality in better ways. $35 to create any computer you want to, and Reliance led out to the largest telephone company in India. Send your engineers to drama school, left brain to right brain, and Tencent is Google, Amazon and Facebook in one company. 1.2 million euros will buy you a flying car right now from Slovakia. AirAsia is the most profitable airline in the world. It's entirely virtual. More hotel rooms than the top 5 hotel chains, bringing people together. And Ctrip is the largest travel company in the world. Lime running you over on pavements across the world, and 700 miles an hour to zoom from Abu Dhabi to Dubai in 12 minutes. Kulula having fun in South Africa, and Skybags pedaling your way through the Amazon jungle. Uber is not just about travel, but also about delivering food. And Zipcars, why buy a car when you could dream of one when you want one? In the world of manufacturing, Amsterdam has 600 places you can press print for 3D designs, and Aerofarms is the future of farming. Braskem turning urban waste into green energy in Brazil, and Corning business to business getting emotional too. 28 days will create your dream car delivered to your home, and planetary resources, asteroid mining, it already happens. SpaceX is about 10 times cheaper than NASA and feeding the future world of 9 billion people. Tata is about frugal innovation, small ideas made bigger, and Tesla faster than a Ferrari, but zero carbon emission at the same time. Personalization is the new luxury in fashion, and bringing scraps of material together from a charity in Colombia. Beauty is for everyone, says Rihanna, and selling t-shirts in a cupcake store to do things different. Patagonia says don't buy it, but do buy it, and you see it on the TV, you can buy it instantly. The first super brand from China is Shanghai, and Stitch Fix sends you a box, you buy what you want and you send it back. It's contagious. Threadless about having crowdsourced competition, so creativity from people, and one-for-one doing good every time you buy. In the world of media, then ByteDance tells you what you need to know with artificial intelligence and making better use of industrial locations. This is China's Walt Disney shopping and entertainment brought together, and fans playing against fans, not just sports teams. Fortnite changes the world of gaming, as you might have noticed, and making learning more fun and interactive with each person. The most profitable music company in the world, and changing the way we entertain ourselves with scientific algorithms, reinventing the world of education, and bringing the news together across Africa, the #1 company. And finally, in the world of food, any form of wine, champagne can be made in a laboratory today, cheaper and better, and Brewdog giving people equity in the country. Grumine allowed Danone to be the biggest dairy in Asia, and Grey's giving you good food, which is fast. HelloFresh is about helping you make great meals, and Juan Valdez become the leading coffee company in South Africa. Stark made Spanish olive oil cool. Best beer in the world comes from New Zealand winery. Nespresso, 8,000% more profitable than the coffee machines, and the Chinese gooseberry, which was reinvented as the kiwi fruit 37 years ago. So, which one inspired you? Which one inspired you? Come on, choose. Which one? Second sight, the ability to connect the camera to your brain. Yeah? Giving people who are blind the ability to see. Phenomenal for them. Yeah? What else? What else inspired you? Patients like me, yeah. So, people trust people. Even doctors, highly trained doctors, we still trust patients who have something similar to us and want to talk to them. Another one, what inspired you? BlackRock, yeah. So the leader of one of the world's leading financial services companies say, we will only invest if you do good for the world at the same time as delivering economic returns. Fantastic. Okay, any more? Okay, so M-Pesa, so turning a mobile phone company into realizing people want to share money and making it simple for them, then branding it as M-Pesa and becoming the leader of financial services company in Africa. More. Okay, so you want one of those cars. So Bitcar, so the ability to have fractional ownership, yeah? So being able to touch those things which you never thought you could. Sorry? Hyperloop, yeah. So Elon Musk's dream, which is fast becoming a reality, sitting in that suction tube, going 1,250 kilometers per hour and getting somewhere in less than 10 minutes. Flipping heck, that's incredible. But the point is, these are all exciting, they're inspiring. They come from different parts of the world. Some of them are big, some of them are small. You don't need to be big in the world today. But thinking about what can you learn from each one of these companies. It's not just about learning from your own sector. You can learn from any sector. They all have human beings as their customers. And so thinking about what can you take from that. And the other thing, whilst the Fortune 500 have less than 5% as female leaders, if you look at these companies here, I counted up, 54% have a female leader or a female founder. So I thought that was interesting. They're fast. It's about speed. It's about how can you do things at warp speed. Secondly, it's about using the power of connections like never before. Thinking how can you exploit networks of different types. Using real and artificial intelligence to do more, to do faster, to be positive and to be predictive about the forwards-looking world. Think about collaboration in new ways, allowing people to connect with people, partners to connect with partners, and so achieving more together. And then finally, it's about thinking bigger, having the confidence and having the bravery to go further and think bigger. So why is the future female? It's kind of hopefully becoming clearer now. Indra Nooyi, who is one of those Fortune 500 leaders until recently, she said at the World Economic Forum, the old logic is dead, the future is female. Her point is, you cannot think in a way which machines think. You've got to think beyond the machines. You've got to think beyond the conventions of the old world. You've got to break those old rules. You've got to connect ideas together in new ways. But what do we mean by female? Because what I don't mean is that women are better than men. I think equality, we all agree, is incredibly important. But there's something special about the female and the characteristics of those females, which is important to the future world. So you could look at female in terms of the logic of biology. But even that becomes difficult because it's always not clear whether it's a binary choice between male and female. Look at Caster Semenya, the athlete, for example. So science does not just, biology does not just give us the answer. There was some work done by Harvard Business School recently. You might have seen it this year. It looked at managers in terms of the words they use to describe men in positive ways and negative ways, and the way it describes women in positive ways and negative ways. Yeah? Unfortunately, most of the managers were men, so that biases the argument. But still, that it illustrates the problem of actually the ways in which convention thinks inside organizations. And I think we can do better than that. So that's the current stereotypes which we have, which is, again, one of the challenges, but also one of the opportunities to change. And then thirdly, we have the brain, and you've heard lots of arguments about the brain. That old analogy of left brain, right brain, which is quite simplistic, that the left brain is logic and more masculine, the right brain is more feminine. You've heard the logic that actually it's the connection between the left brain and the right brain, and women have more white matter than men, therefore they can make more connections between logic and intuition. What is certainly true is that actually the connectivity within the brain in all different parts is much greater in females than men. The implications of that are still not entirely clear. Some people say men are better thinking, women are better intuition and relationships. Other people say, well, the size of your brain and the different parts of the brain just depend on how big you are as a human being, and that could be male or female. So I think it's partly about the science. And the science can tell us some things which can help us to kind of put things in boxes, although boxes aren't always helpful. So we know that that old left brain analogy says that logic and detail and facts and knowledge and strategies are all about that kind of that old world which did succeed in the past. But actually maybe it's more of these right brain things which we need more of today, to see the big picture of other industries and how China and India and Indonesia and Africa are creating new opportunities, to look at possibilities, to be more intuitive, not rely upon logic, because intuition is looking forwards and logic is looking backwards. So to be able to look forwards. These are the things which are likely to be automated by a machine. These are the things where humans will excel in the future. You know, actually, it's moving beyond those incremental mindsets, analytical, command and control, the top-down, which we talked about. It's moving to that more Alibaba-driven exponential thinking of how can you create a more interesting world? How can you amplify things emotionally like Lime scooters in new ways? How can you be more collaborative and flexible in terms of how you move forwards? The World Economic Forum did a recent thing called Women's Voices. And it actually captured some of the great women leaders around the world. And what do they think is driving success? Here's one of them.
I'm Ana Botín, Executive Chair of Banco Santander. To fix the problems of the world, we need collaboration. And for this to happen, we need to trust each other and understand each other. And of course, this only happens when we listen. Women are good listeners, and men need to listen more to women, because a world where women reach their full potential will be a better world for all of us. So let's listen more, let's listen better. I mean, not just hearing, but listening. This would be a huge step to making the world better for all of us.
So one of 100 women who you can watch on YouTube with their views as to what becomes successful. Of course, it's not just what creates success in the past, it's what creates success in the future, which also matters. I think those are the things, and you can call those female if you like, but those are the things which will drive success in the future. That's why I think the future is female. So, what do you do? Well, there's 4 things I'd like to leave you with. One is to dream more. To dream about what the possibilities are. To jump to the future and then to work backwards. So think about a bigger idea and then work backwards to make it happen. If you jump out of today's world, you're not limited by the conventions of the people around you, the stereotypes, and the organizations in which you work. So be able to jump out of that and have your own vision as to what is actually possible. To start with 5 years forward and then work backwards, say what we're going to do in 4 years to achieve that, in 3 years to achieve that, in 2 years, and what we're going to do next year to achieve that. Don't just try to stretch your old business, but try to create the future by starting tomorrow. Number 2 is be much more of a designer. In terms of you design the solutions. Be more human, be more relevant and inspiring. Don't just think of the logic of the technology. Technology is here to help us. Make it invisible and make the human things more powerful and visible. So think about how can you not just see things from your business or organization perspective, but truly, how can you see it from a human being's perspective? You see new opportunities. The opportunity is not yourself, your product here. The opportunity is to connect your world with people's world, real people's world, and to do that in better ways. Thirdly, make the future happen faster. So think about how can you have that better view of the future. Get your team together. Get your partners together. Create a shared view as to where you're trying to get to. Then think about how can we experiment in terms of making it happen faster. And then think, well, how can we actually learn from what we've done? And how can we adapt? How can we change? And how can we keep moving forwards? And how can we keep those 3 cycles moving all the time? So the power to make things happen always trumps over the power of a dream which stays on the paper. And fourthly, and most importantly, give people inspiration. So be yourself. That's what's most inspiring. Be yourself in terms of the way in which you inspire people, you bring people together, and have a mindset which is about growth. It's about going forwards. It's about possibilities. It's about trying things. Not one which just seeks perfection, not just one which says, today is good enough and let's make it better and better and better, but one which lets go of today and says we want to create a better world. Have a growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset. This should be your brain right now and keep it with you throughout the day. Shape your vision. Don't let the future be created by other people. You can create the future. Secondly, constantly make sense of that change. Define new opportunities. Look for the patterns. Look for the connections. Be Leonardo da Vinci. He said innovation is about making new connections in new ways. Have a passion. Any kind of organization is ultimately about making life better. Have an audacious attitude. Dare to do big things, not just the small things, and get on and do it faster and better. But also have a persistence at the same time. And for those reasons, that's why you, because that is your brain, that's why you can be a leader today. And that's why I think the future is female. So be bold, be brave, and be brilliant. Thank you very much.